How would you like to be tortured? Chances are you wouldn't. But if for some strange reason you did, I've put together a list of the 10 most disturbing torture methods ever recorded in human history. I'll rank them from less terrible to absolutely nightmare fuel. Let's dive in. 10. The breaking wheel. We're starting off strong with a device that sounds like a carnival ride but is anything but fun. Known as the Catherine wheel, or simply the wheel, this was an ancient Greek invention later perfected in medieval Europe. The process was brutally simple. Victims were tied by their arms and legs to a giant wooden wheel, and then their limbs were smashed with hammers until bones gave way. Once they were barely clinging to life, the wheel was hoisted upright on a stake so the crowd could watch them die slowly. Other twisted variations included strapping someone to the outside of the wheel and rolling them downhill, or suspending the wheel over a fire until both the wood and the victim caught flame. Not exactly fun times. And this is only number 10. 9. The Spanish Tickler Imagine Freddy Krueger gloves, or Wolverine's claws, except they weren't for comic books. They were designed to strip human flesh. The so-called Spanish tickler was basically a metal claw used to rake across a victim's skin, tearing muscle and exposing bone. Sometimes people bled out immediately, but if they didn't, infection soon took over. There's even debate among historians about whether it was truly used, but the stories alone were terrifying enough to keep it infamous. Compared to what's ahead, though, this is still considered mild. 8. Bamboo torture. The name sounds harmless, right? But no, this one is nightmarish. Bamboo grows incredibly fast, sometimes up to 3 feet in a single day. The torture method exploited this by tying victims above young bamboo shoots. As the plants grew, the sharpened stalks would pierce through the body, slowly impaling vital organs. Victims could literally feel the stalks pushing through them inch by inch. Death usually came within 24 hours. It was less a fight against another human, and more against nature itself. A fight you couldn't possibly win. 7. The Blood Eagle. This is one of the most infamous Viking tortures, and if you're squeamish, brace yourself. The victim was laid face down, then their back was cut open with such force that the ribs snapped apart. Those ribs were then pulled outward like wings, and to complete the grotesque image, the lungs were dragged out and draped over them. The result was a bloody eagle shape. Unsurprisingly, death was guaranteed. The Vikings weren't exactly known for subtlety. Flaying Alive. As the name suggests, this method was about removing skin while keeping the victim alive. First, the victim was prepared, often by being sunburned or partially boiled to loosen the skin. Then came the cuts, long, precise slices down the body. Torturers would peel away the flesh slowly, sometimes even starting with the face for maximum agony. The worst part? Skilled torturers could keep someone alive for days, leaving them to eventually die from blood loss, infection, or hypothermia. Since without skin, the body can't regulate heat. 5. Chinese water torture. This is one of the most famous methods. The victim was restrained flat on their back, usually blindfolded, and placed under a slow, dripping source of icy water. At first, it's just annoying. But over time, the irregular drops drive the mind insane, while physically eroding the skin until it became raw and blistered. The psychological torment combined with the physical pain could push someone past the point of sanity. 4. White room torture. Unlike the others, this one is purely psychological. But don't think that makes it any easier. Victims were kept in a completely white room, wearing white clothes, eating white food, with a bright white light shining nonstop. No sound, no colors, no interaction. Just complete sensory deprivation. Within days, hallucinations, paranoia, and depression set in. Many victims lost their grip on reality entirely. Even those who survived often said they were never the same again. Second Keelhauling pirates had their own special brand of cruelty. Keelhauling involved tying a sailor with ropes and dragging them under the ship's keel, the sharp, barnacle-covered underside of the vessel. As the victim was pulled beneath, waves smashed them against the hull while the barnacles shredded their flesh. Some drowned, others died from blunt trauma, and if they somehow survived, they were left torn to pieces. It was equal parts drowning, beating, and shredding. A brutal triple threat. 1. Scaphism. Finally, the absolute worst in my opinion. Scaphism, also known as the boats. The victim was placed between two wooden shells, leaving their face, arms, and legs exposed. They were then force-fed milk and honey until their bowels overflowed, and their skin was smeared with the same mixture. Trapped in their wooden coffin, they became a living feast for insects, rats, and worms. Over days, sometimes more than 2 weeks, the victim slowly rotted alive while vermin gnawed and burrowed into their body. The cruelty wasn't quick. It was drawn out, humiliating, and agonizing. And that's my list. Which one do you think was the absolute worst? Drop your ranking in the comments because I'm curious to see how others view these horrific methods. I promise the next video will be a little less nightmare fuel. Oh, and since this is my first video, don't forget to subscribe for more. See you next time.